Hello everyone and welcome to the Creative Noahland podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by international makeup artist and previous winner of Makeup Artist of the Year, my dear friend Gabrielle Hunt. With 10 years experience, Gabby works across all aspects of the industry, from advertising, fashion, music, TV and film, to bridal and occasion makeup, and has built up an impressive resume and an extensive client list that includes Channel 4, brands and fashion designers like Julian MacDonald, as well as multiple celebrities, DJs and models. Gabby grew up with a love of art and a passion for painting and drawing faces that developed with a little bit of help from YouTube and the queen of makeup artistry, Lisa Eldridge, into the decision to turn that passion into a career. We deep dive into Gabby's career, some of the highs and lows, some of the glamorous and, well, not so glamorous elements of being a makeup artist. We talk about how the real learning starts after you've qualified and how when you're starting out, you may have to do quite a lot of what's called, in Gabby's words, the bitch work. We discuss the pros and cons of testing and the ups and downs of being self-employed in the creative industry, doing a job that you love. But ultimately why, if you can surround yourself with like-minded creative people, none of it will feel like work. Gabby also tells us about now going full circle. From the days watching Lisa Eldridge tutorials to now starting her own YouTube channel that provides behind-the-scenes insights, tutorials and techniques and so much more from Gabby, an industry professional. In doing so, Gabby hopes that her knowledge can entertain, add value, and perhaps inspire someone to consider makeup artistry as a future career. I'm going to include links to Gabby's YouTube channel, website, and social media in the show notes for you to check out. Not only is Gabby super talented, she's also a legend that's been making my photographic and video work look good for years now. So, I hope you enjoy listening to this one as much as we enjoyed recording it. Let's get into it. Gabby.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I figured I'd get you on because, let's be honest, you've been making me look well, I say you've been making me look good. That's not directly with you.
I personally do Matt's makeup
and
every
she does
morning.
A fabulous job of it. No, Gabby, you've been making my work look good, and the models that we work with for many years. I figured it was about time that we shone a bit of a light on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's team effort, but thank you.
Well, you do say that, but a lot of the time I don't feel like it's a team effort. I feel like it's you and the model, and then I just click a button and I get lucky sometimes. But anyway, that's a whole different story. So, Gabby, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do? Obviously, you've had a wonderful introduction prior to this podcast.
Which I heard and it was really good.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell people who you are?
I'm Gabby. I'm a makeup artist. I've been a makeup artist it's been like 10 years now. Did you know that?
Are we on some special anniversary? No,
but like in my head, I'm still 24. But then I actually had the realisation it's been like 10 years. And I did the math.
You did the math.
I've been telling everyone it's been like 7 years, like for 4 years. That makes sense. But it's actually been 10.
10 years in the industry.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Oh gosh, where do I start?
Well, no, let's just highlight. Look, you're an international makeup artist. You travel everywhere from Lanzarote to Luton. Sometimes it's glamorous, sometimes it's not. You work on films, you work on TV, you've done stuff for Channel 4, you've done catwalks for Julian MacDonald, you've got regular fashion clients, you've got regular DJ Hannah Want. She's a regular client of yours that you do a makeup for all the time. You've made my work look amazing for many years, as I say. But how do we get here? Where do you think we should start? Do we need to go back to Gabby as a artistic little child, or
probably to the roots? Also, like, what? I'm not gonna fit out the door after that.
I know that you
need to be like my PR person.
Well, it's always easier to PR someone else, isn't it, than do yourself. And I know you're very humble and you probably wouldn't mention all these things, so I want to make sure that people know that I've got you on for bloody good reason.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah, back to baby roots, I guess.
So go on then. Let's talk about baby Gabby. When does makeup come up? What was the bits beforehand? I've got some notes written down about interesting projects you did about faces when you were an arts.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I forgot to
Well,
and I would have forgot to bring that up.
Well, it's about creativity. It's about being inspired. So where do you feel that creativity started with you?
I've always been creative. I think that it was probably one of those things that when I was super young, like just above toddler age, someone probably just bought me a present that was like a pad and paints, and do you know what I mean? Just it struck well. So I've always been really creative. I used to paint a lot. I used to draw a lot, and then so I always knew it'd be something creative. But before makeup, my main kind of passion was art. So that's what I studied at school for my kind of specialist subjects. But I loved faces in art. Like that's what I've always been drawn to. So I did a project on pre-Raphaelite art and Renaissance art because I just loved the focus on the face. And I enjoyed painting faces. I did actually want to do my project on makeup through the ages and paint those styles because Lisa Eldridge, who is like an icon for the queen of makeup artists, I used to watch makeup on YouTube when it was purer and less influencery and commercial. So I used to religiously watch her YouTube channel.
Okay, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. I'm probably going to embarrass you. Did you look at Twilight?
Yes, I'll get there.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Wait.
Eldridge, sorry.
So she had done a YouTube video on makeup through the ages, and I loved that. So I wanted to basically like paint each era, each face with the stylization.
Have you got? I mean, this is a bit off topic, and we will go back. Have you got like an era that you think, wow, the makeup from that era was just that's the one? I mean, because I go back. I'm thinking in my head, we've got all the crazy 70s, 60s, Bowie-esque. New romantic, that's a bit extreme, but
let me think. I like 60s and 70s, but in terms of what I find really, really beautiful,
such as what was it about that makeup? Because obviously
there's a difference between fun and beautiful, isn't there?
So, okay, say more on that. So, have I gone too extreme thinking of the Bowie and the new romantics in the 80s and 70s?
No, I think that was really, really, really fun. And I think that to treat makeup as something fun and creative and as a form of expression is purer and healthier than I think what it maybe is treated like now as a mask sometimes. So, yeah, I'd say like that kind of era for fun and creativity. But in what I would gravitate to what I would probably do myself, I love 90s.
What was it about the 90s makeup that was defining?
90s hair and makeup, I think it was so flattering. I think it was still fun, but really flattering. I just think that whole era is pretty like iconic. When I gravitate to even like films, it's always going to be like a 90s or like TV, not just hair and makeup, fashion.
And are we sort of seeing that come back now?
Oh yeah, there's been a massive renaissance for sure.
Oh, look at me, so much trending. Anyway, let's get back to you. So you wanted to paint
makeup through the eras, and
why didn't you?
Because my art teacher, who obviously was super successful at art, which is why she taught at Edgecliff.
Oh goodness, Gabby, I sense a bit of sarcastic
she completely
tone.
shat. Can I sign?
Yeah, you can
She
swear.
completely shat all over the idea and told me it wasn't even gradable, so I had to do something else.
So what was her suggested alternative?
Well, she'd made us do art history on pre-Raphaelite, and obviously I found that really beautiful and tick box exercise. I was like, okay, well I can combine what I want to do with what I know you're going to like, so...
That's a shame. But
A-star, baby.
I had no doubt you'd A-star it. Okay, so that set the wheels in motion of faces. When was it? I mean, and obviously, I mean, your art teacher poo-pooed the idea of doing the makeup. So obviously there was the makeup connection and you were looking at YouTube.
Yeah. What got me into YouTube, you ask? Twilight.
Yeah,
no, it actually was Twilight. So younger teenage me was obsessed with Twilight, loved the films. And then was like, I want to know how to look like Bella Swan. So YouTube how to look like Bella Swan and got into like film makeup tutorials through that. I really tried hard to look like her.
And in my limited knowledge, I mean, I've watched the movies, but just whack a load of talcum powder on your face and look really pale?
It's just not that simple, Matt.
Okay, sorry. Okay, cool. But when was there a sort of a moment when you went, okay, maybe I can do makeup as a career? I mean,
we were doing that kind of careers exercise in like, I think it was PSHE, where they just say like, go on the computer and just research careers, research interests, and find out what you think you want to do. It was pretty crazy actually to just stick a load of 16-year-olds on computers and say, just Google stuff and figure out what you want to do for a bit of a rogue exercise, to be honest. But I knew I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I also wanted to do something lucrative, loosely. So it was trying to find something that was that happy medium, because I mean, I was always brought up with the notion that you couldn't make money from art. I know now, obviously, having encountered the industry and meeting artists, that's not true. It's a hard gig, but it's not true. But I was under the notion then that it was impossible to earn money off art. So couldn't be an artist, but wanted to be some kind of an artist. And loved makeup, loved beauty. And then it was actually a friend that was like, well, why don't you look into that? Looked into it and was like, okay, for like, this also looks like a hard gig, but be easier to get into.
But I'm guessing this was a different time. I mean, now, we've spoke about, and we will speak a bit more about the YouTube thing, where everyone thinks they can start a YouTube channel and suddenly they're a makeup artist. But to actually be a makeup artist, you have to qualify and do all these things. So you've got like level 3 theatrical media makeup.
Yeah.
But then you also went on and did some crazy prosthetic. Was that
was part of so that was the difference between doing like beauty and the theatrics. So when you train for beauty, you do a very, very like basic makeup level, enough to do like a pretty wearable makeup. But it is all on beauty. Whereas when you're doing theatrical, it's just all hair, makeup, prosthetics, wigs, pastiche, things like that. So
and we also know how, us working together in such a long time, the minute you put lights and cameras in front of people, the makeup has to be different. It's not your everyday.
Yeah, but even that's changed so much from when I trained, because when I trained, no, I'm not saying all courses are the same, but where I trained, they kind of would throw old books at us and we'd read them. So even when I trained, the methods that I was trained to for, let's say, photography weren't really in alignment with modern technology and modern cameras and modern lighting. So I really learned on the job as I went. That's how I really learned. I was very much taught with the very dated methods of like thick matte pan stick.
Right, okay, now you're talking a different language to me.
Because thick matte pan stick base.
What does that even mean?
Because obviously, well, yeah, like old school photography couldn't cope with what's the word? Monochrome? What's the word I'm thinking? Yeah. Of shine. You know?
Oh, right. So just
dewy skin was a
matte pan stick is just like a
heavy, and it was
shiner.
like when old school light and photography would wash out like 90% of the makeup. So you had to do it garishly, like heavy and matte, which modern cameras don't. I'm not saying like, you still have to diffuse shine a bit sometimes, but you don't need that like old school style of makeup anymore. Or like they taught us, if you were doing black and white makeup and you wanted it to look like a red lip, like black and white photography, and you'd go in with a black lip,
right,
to show up dense enough. But me and you do shoots where you'll just edit the same photo in colour and in black and white, and it shows. Do you know what I mean? I have to do like a different black and white style makeup for those shots.
So you were learning from what? From
just
quite
dated. It was dated.
Even for then, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, I have encountered photographers that still like that style. Few and far between, but still like that style. But yeah, dated.
Okay, so how do you go from, right, you've qualified, you've got this theatrical media makeup qualification. What happens then? Realistically, because I'm sure you're not going to be the only girl that fancied their self as a makeup artist.
I do think I'm the only one, bar one girl from my whole course that stayed in it.
Yeah, and that's commendable, because I think, like you say, it's a tough industry. But how did you go from the qualification to actually starting to find work, people to trust you, to start painting their faces? What does that look like?
You got to do the bitch work.
Okay, talk to me
Gotta
about the
do
bitch work. What's the bitch work?
You got to just throw out a boatload of emails to other makeup artists that are higher than you, where you want to be, and hope one of them will let you assist. And then, like, going back to me saying I learned on the job, I think the training was really important for the clinical side. The things that you learn about hygiene, skin, all that stuff, which you see on a lot of jobs, which self-taught makeup artists who might do beautiful work don't necessarily know that side of things. But in terms of the actual skill, makeup artistry, that was learned on the job. That was learned assisting. That was learned doing the free stuff.
Seeing how it's those skill sets are applied in real life terms, you mean?
Yeah, and seeing real techniques. Like, no shade to my course at all, but we'd be given a very surface level generic demo at the start of each kind of module for that thing. And then it would be like, okay, like, go away, find out how to do it, research, hone your... There wasn't a lot of practical demonstration, in my opinion. But watching real makeup artists who are out there on the job really doing it in a real environment and seeing how they work in terms of industry etiquette, but also how they physically do something, whether it's how they stick on a lash or how they stick on liner or whatever, apply liner, that's how you learn, in my opinion.
And what sort of jobs are you assisting on at this point?
First job I assisted on was for Mode of Fashion Catwalk with Katie Bird. Shout out. Love her. Yeah, she was the first person that took me on an assisting job. And then other learning on the job in ways that aren't assisting, but I would still say learning on the job is like taking like test shoots, not in a mean way, but like lower grade jobs where there is room for error because they know they're taking on someone who's not very experienced and they're doing that because it's cheaper or
Can
it's
you talk
free.
a little bit about that? Because, I mean, I know what testing is.
Testing. I'm really new. Like, testing for me is like very split. It is good to do when you're starting out, and it can be really good to do. Testing is basically when you collaborate with the creatives, model, photographer, could be stylist, hair, and you will shoot for free to create the content. And it's a really good thing to do when you're building a portfolio. It's a good thing to do if you've got a really good relationship with people and a good rapport and you just want to try things out. But I think it's just warped a bit. And I think it's now used as an excuse for just free labor. And I think people get carried away with it. And that's why I'm very like reticent to test now. And I'm very vocal about how I don't rate it that much anymore. Most of the time.
But I guess, like anything, I suppose that depends on who you're testing with.
It depends who you're testing with, but also I'm trying to structure my thoughts here because I don't want to go on like a erratic.
You can go on an erratic tangent if you want.
So this is all from like me personally. So 2 points to this. The one I would say is it depends how you recreate, because some creatives recreate in the same way that they work, and they would find testing in their time off energizing and fun and mentally recharging. I love my job, but it is still a job. The way I recreate is not through makeup artistry. It's with very like, I'd say, solitary creative things. I like to draw, I like to paint, cook, like I like to do those kind of things. So for me, I now will only test if it's an amazing idea, because it takes up the same mental headspace and energy as a job would. So it's not a day off for me. So that is the caveat I would say, like, figure out if it works for you in that sense, first of all. This is all from the stance of you've got your portfolio and you've got your experience.
Yeah, you're 10 years into an industry.
Yeah.
If you're starting out as a makeup artist or a photographer or a model, the testing thing is, like you say, it can have its real rewards because you get to build portfolio. If you choose the people you work with, you're going to get strong shots, presumably.
Yeah.
I mean, there is just the caveat, obviously, when you're starting out, just be careful of who you're working with, because...
Yeah, that's the next thing I'm going to go into. So I would always 100% say test when you're starting out, because it's a great way of building a portfolio and experience and making mistakes that aren't going to penalise your career because it was a test. But you've still got to be so careful who you test with, because when you're just starting out, it's so tempting to just be like, oh my God, they want to work with me, and feel so flattered that you will agree to. And I did a lot of tests in the beginning that I never used the photos because they weren't. And then what have you got from it?
Yeah.
Or, testing with someone for too long. A lot of people will approach you, a lot of brands. I don't know if it still happens, but when I was kind of starting out, this was a really big thing that just I would see a lot, not just with me, but with other creatives that I knew that were just starting out, where smaller brands would approach you and pitch it as like a practice shoot or a test shoot first that would then lead into paid jobs. And I can genuinely say not one of those things ever led into paid work, ever. And they weren't collaborative creative tests. They were things with a brief. They were things which they would use to advertise with. So basically you were just doing like a campaign shoot for free under the false promise of, but it will lead to work with us. And it never did. So I think people misuse the word test. People just stamp the word test on anything where they don't want to pay someone, but then will still think they can set them a brief and pick the day and the schedule, and you know what I mean? It's not a collaboration.
Yeah, a test is a collaboration.
Brands message me now. Wedding shops are big for it. And they'll say they've got a test, and you ask more questions and you unpick what it is, and you're like, oh, so this is an advertisement shoot. You're going to use these photos to sell your dresses.
Well, yeah, just for anyone listening, there are pitfalls and bonuses to testing and choosing the right people. I think, oh God, that's probably a podcast in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like I want to finish that off by saying it is still good to do. I think because I got burned a lot through them, I still have a bit of a place of hurt when I speak about them. And I think sometimes I've come down a bit too hard on them, if that makes sense.
No, I don't think so. I think you've just given a little warning to people out there doing testing that sometimes you do have to be a bit selective on the things you do, and know, like you say, know where the images are going to be used, because that's a big no-no. If you're all working for free, but yet someone's going to be using those images commercially and make profit from them, that's a bit of a no-no. So you're building up your career, and you've done testing, you're assisting makeup artists, and presumably honing your skills to the point where you're starting to do your own jobs.
Yeah. I'm having to cast back now.
Well, 10 years in the industry, Gabby, is a long time. I won't tell you how long I've been doing it, but yeah.
So the assistant jobs turned paid, and then just through that, essentially building it's like a very small client base at this point, word of mouth. I'd reach out to a lot of photographers who would recommend work and things like that. And it's just that kind of like very slow rolling snowball.
But it's a sort of a networking thing, because you also have to be good at your job and be personable on shoots, friendly, helpful, whatever those things that we all, well, let's face it, no one wants to work with a dickhead on a shoot. So honing those skills as well, those interpersonal skills of working with different people every day is quite an interesting one to
It is. It's a very sociable job, and the stuff you get told, honestly, I could write a big blackmail book. I never would. But no, but you get told some stuff.
Yeah.
And then you kind of be like, wow, he told me.
Yeah.
But
is the makeup artist a bit, I suppose it's a bit
therapist.
Like the therapist, the hairdresser's confessional chair and all that, you can tell them anything.
Oh God, yeah. And it never goes anywhere.
I want to push a little bit deeper on that. What's the weirdest thing you've ever heard?
Oh, weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Maybe we should have.
I feel like I don't. Yeah, I genuinely, like, I'd have to sit here for ages and try to think of something, because then I do kind of just push them to the back of my head. I don't know. If anything randomly crops up, I'd blart it out with no context, and you'd be like, what the hell? And it has to be like, it would have to be something so long ago that it wouldn't be like I'm divulging anything.
Let's move on. I don't want to know what the weirdest thing that's happened on shoot is. So, oh God, I've literally...
It might be your shoots.
Yeah, probably might be. It might be. That's the worrying thing. So yeah, we've gone off topic. Where were we? We were talking about...
how to build a client base.
Yeah, networking, it being important.
Yeah, I think assisting other makeup artists, working with photographers, they were like the key group of people I would reach out to, because you find that kind of like your air quote real people, clients, people that would get married, people that would have their makeup done for nights out, then that is a word of mouth thing, and that's a recommendation thing or a social media thing, and that's just got to grow organically as you put your work out there. And
so can you just say a bit more about that? So as well as all the what I call commercial photographic film, TV, television, you're doing bridal and sort of occasion makeup, is it called?
Yeah, I call it event makeup.
Event makeup.
I feel like the you have to approach building each client base in two different ways. So like with the event makeup, with their bridal, you have to just put your work out there, put good work out there. People see it's good. Someone chooses to trust you and book you, then they recommend someone else. It's that kind of slow burner effect, because the majority of work from that will be word of mouth. With the other side, with photographers, with other makeup artists, with the more industry side, you've got maybe a little bit more control over that, in terms of you are going to be reaching out to people, you're going to be emailing them to work with them, to assist them, things like that. Most will ignore you, but some will reply. So you've got a bit more of that kind of like hands-on network approach, as opposed to letting something grow and do it organically. Because if you just cold called a bride and like, book me, I heard you're getting married, book me, they'd be like, what the hell?
That's a bit weird.
Not doing that. That's weird.
Which do you prefer? I mean, bridal and occasion makeup must be nice, because you've got that element of, presumably you're, making someone look beautiful. They feel hugely self-confident. I'm not saying you don't do that on commercial jobs, but perhaps that's not necessarily the biggest thing. If someone's going to get married, they want to look the best they can possibly be. Their self-confidence wants to be booming, so you contribute to that.
And the styles of makeup that you do are completely different, like completely different techniques, completely different styles, even different products that you'd reach for. My mind might change, but as it stands, I think I'm someone that needs to do both.
Okay.
I think that I love shoots. I love working with like-minded people. I like obviously the creativity of it. And also, like, let's be honest, there is normally less of the behind-the-scenes admin side. You kind of show up for your day's work and you're done. Feels a bit more traditional in that sense. I think most creative people would agree the paperwork side kind of kills us. So I love shoots in that sense. But then I love bridal. The places that you get to see, I always joke that I get to frequent places I can't afford to go myself. And I love that style of makeup as well, that more like soft glam, made up look.
Must be quite rewarding when you see how it is
an honour. Like, you kind of like, you don't really know me, and I'm here on one of the most intimate mornings of your life. So that's pretty humbling. So yeah, I really like them both for different reasons. And when you maybe feel a bit burnt out from one, you do the other, and it breaks it up, so it feels a little less samey, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, of course. I think that's important.
So I like the fact that I do both. I think if you're I don't know many makeup artists that solely, I know lots that only do weddings, but I don't know any that only shoot and don't do wedding.
Yeah, I understand. Because, I mean, like you say, and what is that situation? I mean, I think we've darted around a bit all over the place, but when you were first starting out, you had a part-time job to pay your way a bit, didn't you? And all these things, and worked in pubs and all these things, because you wanted to do this, be a makeup artist. You have to subsidise your income somehow before you can build that network of clients, presumably.
Yeah, it's an expensive job to do.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of people don't think about that. Makeup products in themselves are
building
hugely...
your kit's really expensive. Obviously, your insurance. I don't want to say you can't do without a car, because people manage it, but it's bloody hard. Can you imagine not having
must be
to
difficult
lug all your kit around?
All that kit
I think
around.
if you were London based and you only worked in London, it would be like easier. But if you're based in the country, like
you work all over the place, like you say. You've worked all over the world, all over the country.
It'd be very hard to do without a car. And then on top of that, you're expected to work for free for so long. So yeah, it's a bit of a paradox in that sense.
But then I think in some respects that's a testament to you and your drive to make this happen, and the fact that, as you said earlier, you're probably only one of two people from your course that are still doing what you do, because it is so tough to maintain and to build that reputation within the industry. Because I mean, before we met, I was a bit stuck in my ways. I always used the same makeup artist, and then things elevated for her and she got very busy. And as for photography, you have to be very careful who if you get a bad makeup artist, your images are going to look,
A lot of editing for you.
well, yeah, let's just put it like that. But like, that's what I used to love about any of our shoots, is that I don't have to do too much work on them afterwards. And that's a testament to you. But that's not easy to build up that skill set. And, you know, there must be an element of persistence to you to just go, I want to keep going. I want to keep going.
I think it's a persistence of me, but also just really lucky to have very supportive people around me.
You've got people around you that are supporting you and encouraging you and making you believe that, you know, the starving artist syndrome that you were growing up with is not necessarily the truth.
Yeah, I think it takes like a lot of drive of yourself, but I think it's very important to have supportive people around you as well, 100%. And also surround yourself with other people in your boat, like-minded creatives.
Yeah, and
That's
the fact
important.
that you were willing to do the part-time job and, you know, probably not be going out huge amounts and sacrificing other things in a way because you wanted to do this, you know.
Yeah, it's especially when you're doing the bridal side. It's a sociable job in the sense of how much you are involved with your client. It's a very antisocial job in terms of you miss your weekend because you're up at 5 a.m. on the Saturday.
Yeah,
So it's very antisocial.
people
in that way.
selfishly get married on the weekend so all their friends and family can go to the wedding. They don't think,
They just don't.
What's wrong with the
they
Tuesday?
Don't think about the makeup artist. You know, more and more weddings are in the week now.
is that down to a cost thing, presumably?
I also think flexi time working is more prevalent. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Well, there you go. More work for you.
in the week.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to I want to talk about some of your highs, lows. Like, I mean, obviously the high is working with me, but
This podcast.
exactly, being interviewed on the Creative No One podcast is. So let's talk about some of the highs and lows of being a makeup artist. What do you think? What's one of the biggest challenges of being a makeup artist?
Well, everyone's challenge is going to be different. For my biggest challenge isn't pivotal on the makeup artist aspect. It's the self-employment aspect. It's the lack of consistency sometimes, and you know, that
I
can be
can
quite
completely
scary.
relate. You
That
never
can be
quite know
scary,
what's
yeah.
coming in month to month sometimes as self-employed people.
And you know, you got to think more about the future. Like there are so many perks to being self-employed. There are also a lot of drawbacks. You can't be ill. You don't get sick pay. I won't get maternity. Sort your own pension. All that stuff.
It's very difficult to switch off when your job is your passion as well, right?
It is. And I think that a lot of people, and I think you will probably get the same, they hear you're a photographer, they hear you're a makeup artist, they only envision you working the practical side. They forget that you get back home from a day's work to another day's work, because then you got to do all your admin and your marketing and your accounts and da-da-da-da. So that when you're in a really busy time as well, when you're having to back to back everything, that can be quite challenging.
Is there I mean, we've spoken about it before, but is there a perceived attitude to, I mean, I know there is, oh, you're a photographer, you're a makeup artist. It's almost that perception of it's not an inverted commas real job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say even more so with makeup artistry. That's not me being, I beat you, but I don't know, there's more of that kind of frivolous stereotype to makeup artistry than
What do you think that's
photography.
down to?
I think that because it's involving essentially how you make people look. Like with photography, there's a very technical aspect, right? So people would associate that with that requires a lot of intelligence. Whereas I think that there is that negative stereotype that like it's a bit bimbo-y sometimes.
Oh, I see. Well, as a photographer, I would argue that makeup artistry is much harder than photography. I don't have to stick brushes near anyone's face or eyeballs or any of that stuff. As long as my settings and my, like you say, my technicality bits are right, I just push a button.
Everyone thinks what they're skilled at is easy because it's easy to them.
I suppose, yeah. But
That was what I encountered early on. I don't really get that now. I don't know whether it's because of a shift in mindset or just my personal surroundings.
Okay, can you say more about that?
I don't feel like I get that bimbo stereotype now, and I don't know if that's just because of the people I'm around, or whether there has been an overall, if I was to go out into the big wide world and find out like an overall shift on what people associate with that job.
But then wouldn't my argument to that would be you've worked in the industry for 10 years and you've done a lot of social proofing, really, that you've worked with all these different people, you've done all these amazing jobs. There's people that call themselves makeup artists that probably haven't done anywhere near the things you have. So perhaps, like you say, I
think you've hit the nail on the head, though. Social
a mindset
proofing.
shift in the sense that you've spent 10 years doing the thing you say you're fucking going to do. You've got the proof.
That's what I mean. Like, is it how people are treating me because, as you say, of all the social proofing, or would anyone else get that kind of respect?
Yeah,
and that's something I don't know.
Yeah, we'd have to ask someone who's just starting in the industry, I suppose.
How it's treated. I think the other thing, and this applies to anyone that does a job that's a passion, is people, I think because there's such a martyrdom complex with work these days, a lot of people don't like the job that they do, and there is that kind of martyrdom complex with that when you do a passion job, it's almost not treated like a job because you like it.
Yeah, no, I get that completely.
So
it's not a proper job because you love doing it.
You love doing it, so you can't be tired, or you can't want a day off, or be looking for, you should just want to eat, sleep and breathe it because you like it.
Yeah.
And I find often that's where it's not treated like a real job. People want to like basically have a meeting with you while they're out with you socially, and you're kind of like, no, I've done my day's work now. Like, I just want to chill.
Yeah, I get that.
Can you just take a quick picture of me?
Oh, wow, that's different. When people hand me their iPhones, it's like, I'm a photographer, I can compose a picture, but this is an iPhone. What do you want me to do? Although in saying that, some of these iPhones now, I'll be redundant in no time. Okay, let's talk about, come on then, let's big you up a bit. Let's talk about some of the highs, I've spoken about Julian MacDonald fashion show, famous designers, you've worked on films, you've travelled to Lanzarote. Go on, talk to me about some of the highlights of the career. What really stick out to the memory of the...
I'm going to go in no order because I'm going to go as they come.
No, I don't.
So not go chronologically.
No, don't worry about order. I just think...
when I won Makeup Artist of the Year, that was cool. There was a lot of fun. My family were there, and it was just so sweet. My sister was like super drunk, so when everyone else was doing this like really composed, polite applause, and she got up and she was like, "Gabby, fucking what?" And so I was like, "Oh."
Well, like you say, you've always had those people in your corner fighting for you, which has given you that confidence to carry on doing what you're doing. So, Makeup Artist of the Year, that's quite a big one.
That was cool. Oh, I did volunteer at Mother's Day for the Ronald McDonald Hospital, where you just kind of go in and pamper all the mums.
Oh, okay.
And the kids.
That's nice.
That was really nice. That was heavy. I think
rewarding,
nice is the wrong word. And rewarding, but also just very grounding.
Yeah.
Very, very grounding. But I think stuff like that's really good to do, if you can.
What about... Okay, well, have you had some really... because you must have been on some jobs.
I'm sorry, it was amazing. That was so much fun. That was for a sci-fi film. Mm-hmm. The nicest people you could possibly work with, but also just the fun and the thrill of going abroad. Mm-hmm. We shot in the volcanoes because it needed to look spacey. So that was a lot of fun and a good experience. I really like working on locations. I like working on locations out in nature because it just feels so far removed from the rat race feel of things, which is a huge perk for me in this job, to feel like I'm doing the opposite of what we're all trying to be forced to do. So I loved that. The same film, but different scene, different job, was big zombie film. Thousands of extras, had to get them all up looking like
zombies crawling all over,
running. That was really fun, and I got Lynn on that. Lynn's mum. I got mum on that. She was a zombie and a makeup assistant, which doubled up really well because she had to be covered in blood and also help me throw blood. So the more blood she got on her,
great,
looked great. So
winning
two birds.
Shout out to
Lynn. 2 birds, 1 stone, and it was just really nice having her on. She's so enthusiastic. She was stuck in anything. So that was I loved that whole film. Working on that whole film because it was a low budget. They film as and when they can get the funding. So you might film a week with them and not be there for months and then be back a few months later or even a year later. So it's like a very spaced out process, but that whole experience was great.
What about
the shoots with you, Matt?
Yeah, now people not watching, I've got a gun pointed directly at her. No. So, okay, what about, they sound like fun shoots, because it's not all glamorous, is it? There's sometimes when you're on location, you're in the pouring rain, and it's a bit crap and it's a bit miserable, and you've still got to try and make models or actors or actresses look great.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it's more, most of the time it's never glamorous. Like, and that doesn't mean it's not good and not fun, because glamour doesn't have to, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be glamorous to be fun. But I think this misconception that our job's really glamorous. When's it ever been glamorous, Matt?
Well, I think people perceive the idea of a makeup artist sat with a beautiful table around her with, you know, surrounded by beautiful lights, and it's all like that, rather than desperately in a field in the wet with your iPhone
at 6 a.m. with your 12th coffee of the morning. Just like,
12 coffees in and an iPhone pointing at the model's face, trying to get the perfect line in the middle of a rainy field.
But sometimes the grittier ones are actually more fun.
Well, it's that type of fun, isn't it, that you're in it and you think, God, this is annoying, but then you get to the other side of it and you go, God, I'm actually really pleased that I've accomplished that, or I've finished it, or I've done it. When you see
the product at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
The image or the scene, or
yeah, exactly,
which you get. It's very rewarding when you get that up at the end and you like see your work.
Yeah.
Not just your work, everyone that's been involved, but you know, at the end of our shoots, we'll all huddle around the laptop and be like, "Oh, yeah."
And I think that's not like you say, the end result is always, especially in a collaborative process, always a nice thing to see for everybody. Okay. Apart from zombies, what's the sort of, shall we say, the most unique look you've had to create on a job? Because, I mean, I'm sure zombies is quite niche, but...
Unique? I mean, anything down the special effects route is going to be there. Doing some alien looks.
And I suppose with the prosthetics, that's everything from, like you say, making someone look like an alien to making look like someone had their foot slashed off. Or
yeah, I mean, my favourite thing to do with prosthetics is wounds.
Yeah. Okay, why?
So I just find it fun. It's just fun. And it's that realism, isn't it? And then it's like if you show someone a picture and they think it's real, you're like, well, that's obviously a job well done then, isn't it?
I suppose, yeah.
Whereas everyone knows that the alien or the, you know, whatever is not real.
The blue alien, the zombie, something on us.
Yeah, I do like to do a wound.
Okay. I don't know what I mean. I've seen I've seen a lot of your work, and some of the stuff is far too realistic. I mean, I know that's the idea, but like, I mean, go on then. What sort of kit are you using to make a wound?
So, on a lot of the jobs I do, they're on the day. So we're not doing like your silicone molds and stuff because they're not getting people in beforehand.
Right.
Which means that you're going to be using some kind of molding gel instead that goes on wet and then sets and dries on the spot, as opposed to a pre-made prosthetic, which they're really good to work with. Obviously, the challenge with that is the continuity aspect, because essentially you've got to create the same thing every single time, as opposed to making a boatload of the same mold from the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's more challenging in that sense, but then you kind of feel like you're having a bit more of a play.
Is it fake blood? Do you have to make fake blood?
I don't make the fake blood. So
is that something you can just order?
Honestly, I could go. There's so many different types of fake blood, Matt. There's, for what kind of wound are you doing? Like a hemorrhage or a surface? Do you want a red blood, or do you want one that looks like it's got more oxygen in? Do you want like a bluer toned? Different consistencies? Has it got to be in the face or the mouth or the eye in case you'd go for like a syrup? Or is it more of is it just for a wound that you want to set a little bit more? Like, there's so many types of blood.
And is there like a blood Amazon that you can go on like?
So you go on stage brands, really.
Okay. So specific staging materials and stuff like that.
Yeah,
wow. Who knew
brands.
there was so many different types of blood?
I know. Honestly, if you go on to
Have you got a favourite type of blood that you like to use, Gabby?
Yeah, I do quite like a syrup base.
Yeah.
Very safe for the skin.
Oh, good.
It doesn't.
And also you can have a snack halfway through.
You don't have to worry about blinding your client.
And snacks halfway through the
Snacks
job.
halfway through the job.
Interesting. That's mad. How many different types of blood there are. God. Okay, let's go on to bugbears about your career. What is it? I mean, where is the makeup
Hasn't that been this whole podcast?
I think so, but like, I mean, I suppose it's because I'm a little bit out of touch, but like, what's the makeup scene like now? Is there lots of makeup artists coming through? Are we in a bit of a delusion state where people think they can go and watch a few tutorials on YouTube and think they don't have to qualify, they don't have to get insurances? Are you battling any of that? What's influencers? Do we have makeup I suppose we have makeup influencers now that wouldn't have been there. Are they trained makeup artists?
I'd say most of the time, no. Obviously, I don't know their credentials. I would say it's actually becoming less of an issue. I think it has been a big issue, all the things you've just said. But prime example, like wedding venues are now demanding proof, your insurance policies and stuff, before you can be a supplier there. So
that's good.
You know, and things like that. I think clients are more conned onto hygiene standards and things like that. It's more common knowledge. I think a lot more real makeup artists are also getting on social platforms because it is easier to do ad hoc now, and dismissing all the misinformation and giving out correct information.
And you've kind of led me nicely on there because we joked earlier about how you started off watching Twilight makeup tutorials and stuff, but you've sort of done the same, right? You've now started your own YouTube channel. So talk about that. What was the catalyst for you to start your own YouTube channel? Was it disenfranchised with people giving out wrong information, or trying to highlight?
A mixture of I enjoy making it. There's obviously always been a passion there because that's what got me into it. Wanting to bring in the perspective of someone that's actually in the industry and working, showing a kind of almost behind the scenes aspect to being a working makeup artist. Yeah, those are the main kind of reasons why I want to do it.
It's interesting that you have gone full circle.
I know.
Now you're going to be influencing someone else to potentially become a makeup artist. How does that feel?
Maybe. Hope so.
How's it going? What's that like? I mean, is it strange for you being on the other side of the camera?
It is. Yeah. Short answer, yeah. I think with the most challenging thing is obviously trying to start out with something that basically requires full-time commitment where you've already got a full-time job. That's, I'd say, the challenge. Similar to with what you're doing here, like you have a business already that you're running. So to try and fit the time in to dedicate to almost a new venture while still running the current one.
And do you see the YouTube channel as a business, or do you see that as fun? Or
at the moment, for me, it's a passion project, but also to support and add another string to the bow of what I'm doing.
I heard something the other day that was, I'm sure it was, your talent plus helping people equals your purpose.
I like that.
So is that how you sort of feel about, like, I mean, obviously makeup 10 years, it's your skill set, it's your talent, it's all of these things. So now going on to YouTube, presumably, I keep saying it, going full circle, presumably to help people quash myths in the industry, help them create a smoky eye.
Yeah, and also just entertainment. Just that, you know, there might be some people that watch it that that aren't on there to learn how to do makeup, but just enjoy watching kind of the more behind the scenes stuff that I put on there, and just enjoy that little insight to what it's like, or even just, you know, maybe not the tutorials, but the advice videos, or any, you know what I mean? There's different things for everyone.
You know, I've had a bit of a look at it. There's a mix of stuff on there. So you've got tutorials, advice. Is there a plan to add other things, or is that just going to be like?
I think forever changing, right? But for me right now, as I say, it's a passion, but also another string to my bow on my business. I think because I'm in that fortunate position where the job I'm doing now is a job that I do love, I can kind of let the other stuff just see where it goes. I haven't got that kind of pressure of, but no, I need to make this the thing.
And it's all encompassing, I think. It's all part of, dare I say it, your personal brand.
Yeah.
Which is, like you say, when it's you and your passion.
Yeah. And let's be real, like, obviously the passion and helping people, yes. But there is obviously that business aspect as well to it, in which I know that the route that our industry is going down, and you need to be on social media. You just do.
Well, it's interesting. Previously, I've spoken to her in a previous podcast. Wiz, she's a brand and retail strategist, and she was one of the people who was head of buying at Selfridges that brought Charlotte Tilbury to market all those years ago. And she...
Thank you for your service.
Well, I'll have to do an introduction between the two of you, but she was talking about how that was the same thing. Charlotte Tilbury, at the time of launching, she was doing the YouTube thing and telling you how to get the smoky eye. And
Lisa Eldridge put her on her channel. That was her big. That was Charlotte Tilbury's big intro to YouTube. Is she was featured in a Lisa Eldridge video.
Well, there you go.
There
the
you
6
go.
degrees of separation. But it's interesting, and elevating your personal brand like Lisa Eldridge, like Charlotte Tilbury, to a level, and again, it gives you social proof as well as helping people, tackle their makeup problems, or I'm finding the right products to use, whatever those things are. I think is interesting. But do you think that's taken you 10 years worth of experience to build the confidence to go, yeah, I know what I'm doing, enough to sit and put myself in front of camera and tell the world really what I know?
Yeah. I even when I decided I was going to do it, that sitting in front of the camera and speaking and then replaying it meticulously because I was paranoid, what if I've misspoke or just said the wrong thing, or someone's going to disagree with me and say that I'm lying or something, like just that. But then there's just so much noise on the internet that I'm like, just put it out there. Not everyone's going to like it, and that's okay.
Well, I'm going to add all the links to your YouTube and all of that stuff in the show notes, and hopefully
check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Subscribe if you're an aspiring makeup artist, if you've got a passion for makeup, or you just want to see Gabby do her thing, then definitely go and check that out.
Oh, I just want to add something because I just thought
Feel
of
free.
it. So I guess I haven't. It's not on the channels. It's not posted. But I also, if people DM me, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, with asking questions about whether it's products or the industry or like, I always reply to people, and I always try and give if I can answer the question, I will always try and answer it.
That's good.
If I don't know, I'll just say I'm really sorry, I don't know. Yeah,
fair enough. I mean, you might have, depending on how many people listen to this, might have just opened the floodgates to your DMs going, I need a special look for my sister's wedding.
I just remember when I was starting out, it is like fumbling around in the dark, because it's not like a traditional job route where you can just follow a formula, and you are fumbling around sometimes, and a lot of the information can be gatekept a bit. So if I know the answer to something that someone asks me, I will always tell them. And like I say, if I don't know, I'll just hold my hands up and be like, I just don't know, rather than lie.
Do you get people come in and say, oh, how do I get into the makeup industry? And
I have had people ask me about like agency scams, people asking more in depth about tests, because I've done videos on tests, basically saying what I've said on this. People, if I post a look and people want to know what the product was or how I did it, things like that.
Cool. It's nice giving back to the community.
Back.
Well, Gabs, what do you think I've missed on your journey? Have I missed anything on? There's probably lots that we've missed. We seem to have jumped all over the place.
Well, it's our conversation.
It is. I mean, and we apologise, but me and Gabby have known each other for a very long time, and we are a bit scatty with our conversation. So hopefully I'll edit this together so it sounds some way coherent.
This is going to be a really overstimulated episode.
At the end of the day, it's you and me having a conversation. Hopefully, I think you've given loads of information that's going to be useful to aspiring creatives, makeup artists, whatever they want to do. I think there's lots of useful stuff in there. And that's all I want to do, is just hopefully someone listens to this and they get some value from it. And yeah, I think you've given us value. Do you think there's anything that people need to know that I've missed out? Any questions?
I think it's because I think it can be a daunting prospect, this industry. But I think if you find yourself working with the right people, it won't really won't feel like work. It really won't feel like work. It will be so much fun.
And we have a lot of fun.
That's what I mean. Like, you don't get that Monday morning dread, do you?
Working with you?
Well,
Do you want to be honest? No, I definitely don't. As I say, we've worked together for many years, and I love every minute of it because we just have fun and nothing's too stressful. Even when we're doing stressful shoots, we manage to keep each other nice and chilled. So
yeah, that's
always great. And I know you've got similar relationships with a lot of the other photographers and creatives that you work with, and that's a testament again to you and how you work, because some people in this industry are just a bit weird. And everyone's allowed to embrace their weird, but like if you're working in a group, you have to all sort of gel, and that's, as I say, part of the skill set of being in this industry. I think you can be amazing at your job, but if you haven't got the social skills to network and progress yourself further, you could be in a lot of trouble. And I think we've discussed a lot of that through the podcast. So, Gabrielle Hunt, we have got a little tradition on the old Creative Noahland podcast that I'm trying to instill, is that everybody who comes on the podcast has to leave the listeners with some sort of inspiring quote.
Inspiring quote.
Or it doesn't have to be inspiring. It could be any quote that you like. But I think it's always nice. It gets a little bit of an insight into you. It leaves the listeners with something interesting to think about. Okay. Have you got something?
I've actually got two.
Okay.
For two reasons.
Go.
So I'll explain the reasons why I've got two first, why I'm being a nose. One's kind of like a creative business quote, which I think is good. But the other one is more of just a life one, because I think that it's it's important anyway, but I think when you are creative and normally self-employed, you are very susceptible to mental fragility. So it's as important to do constant work and discipline to keep your mind peaceful and healthy as it is to put work into your business, because if otherwise it's, not good. So I loved this one.
So do you know who the quotes are by as well, or have you just...
Yeah. So
okay.
I don't know this person's name, but she is the business founder of Heaven Mayhem, which is a jewelry brand. And I just heard it ad hoc in a podcast. But this is more like your business creative one. If you're not embarrassed, you started too late.
If you're not embarrassed, you started too late.
Yeah. To me, that resonated to me in the sense of like the work the very first bits of work that I put out, but also just some of the business decisions and moves that I made. I'm like, oh my God. But I was learning and I was young, and I think you're always learning. So
hindsight's the biggest superpower. You
can't ever wait till you get to this point of perfect wisdom to be like, now I'll launch all my dreams.
Oh God, no. Look, it's taken me this long to launch the podcast, so
I loved that.
And okay, that's interesting. What was her? You didn't have a name.
She was the
director of what company was it?
Heaven Mayhem.
Heaven Mayhem.
Yeah.
I'll have to do some Googling and find out who that
I know.
is.
I have to actually credit her correctly.
Yes.
And then the little life one, which this, and probably a cliche because it's an Oscar Wilde one, but I just think it's a beautiful quote, and I think it's especially relevant in today's world. But to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist.
To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. God, that couldn't be more poignant for now, could it?
No, I think it's a really important thing to remember, to draw yourself back to being more present. Because I think if you're prone to being an anxious person, you're always thinking about the future and all the things you've got to do and all the things you need to do and what could happen, that you're just not present.
So so you did two cool quotes there. And the other final thing that I like to do is the spider's web of the Creative Noahland podcast, reaching out across the ways. I like to ask our current guests if they've got a guest within their network that they think would be interesting to come on the Creative Noahland podcast, and why. So
it's a photographer that I work regularly with, probably as regularly as I've worked with you. She's fabulous. And when she'll just drop stories in about her life, and I'm like, you are just so interesting. I'm still learning stuff about her now. Sally Sparrow, she's amazing.
Sally Sparrow.
Her work is literal Renaissance art. It just tells stories. But she's just a really cool down-to-earth person as well. Very creative. She's modelled. She's a photographer. She was a chicken farmer.
Interesting.
I know, that's what I mean. She's just
model,
a cool
photographer, chicken farmer.
She's a cool cat.
Can definitely say that's going to be the first chicken farmer we've had come on the podcast. Amazing. Well, we'll have to send her this when it goes live and reach out to her, and hopefully she agrees to come on the podcast. I think that'd be very interesting, if not just to find out about the chicken farming. That's off on a tangent, my brain, how it works. Gabby, I just want to say thank you again for doing this. Shall I just put all the links to you in the show notes? Because it's probably easier, right? There's everything,
Yeah.
TikTok, YouTube.
Because I would literally have to get it all up because I'd forget my own handle.
What have you got? Instagram, TikTok?
2 Instagrams, TikTok and a YouTube. And a Threads, but that never really took off, did it?
Threads. No, not for me, that one. What's next in store for you coming up? Anything exciting?
In work?
In work, in life, in any exciting projects on the horizon?
Do you know what? I will. So on like a collective, this has probably been the most successful and busy I've ever been. So that's just genuinely exciting, just on like a trajectory perspective, especially after the few years we have had. So I'm just really excited to feel like at peace with work again.
Do we need to say any more? I think that's a pretty good place to leave it.
Everything else just beautifully falls into place around that when you are in that good space.
Love it. I think that's a great place to end. Nice and serene. Gabby, love you. Thank you.
Love you. Thank you.
Bless you. You're a superstar. Thank you for listening to the Creative Noah podcast. If you found anything inspiring or useful in this episode, please consider subscribing or maybe sharing the episode with a friend. Anything you can do to help promote and support Creative Noahland is so beneficial, and I really appreciate it. Check out the website and sign up to the newsletter to be the first to know of everything that's going on here in Creative Noahland. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, explore, inspire, and create.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?